July 14, 2007, Green Mountain Summer Camp, Vermont. The morning mist clung to the pine trees like wet cotton as Karen Foster watched her son Lucas adjust the straps on his oversized backpack. At 14, he was caught in that awkward phase between childhood and adolescence, tall enough to look her in the eye but still young enough to let her fuss over his jacket zipper. "Mom, I'm fine," Lucas said, rolling his eyes with practiced teenage exasperation. His sandy brown hair fell across his forehead, partially obscuring the constellation of freckles that had multiplied over the summer. "It's just 2 weeks. People survive without their mothers for 2 weeks." Karen smiled despite the knot forming in her stomach. I know. I just want to make sure you have everything." She glanced at the camp counselor checking names off a clipboard near the yellow school bus. Rows of excited teenagers were already boarding, their voices creating a chaotic symphony of anticipation. "Got my phone?" Lucas patted his cargo shorts pocket, where the small flip phone made a rectangular bulge. Karen had insisted he bring it, even though cell service in the Green Mountain wilderness was notoriously unreliable. It was a Sony Ericsson model, nothing fancy, but it could text and make calls in emergencies. "Charged it last night," Karen confirmed. "And remember, if there's any problem at all, call you, I know." Lucas softened slightly, seeing the genuine worry in his mother's eyes. "Hey, it's going to be awesome. Jeremy's coming too, and they have this new archery program. Plus, Mr. Hendricks said we're doing a 3-day wilderness survival trek. It's going to be epic." Karen knew Jeremy Patterson, Lucas's best friend since elementary school. The two boys had been inseparable since discovering their shared obsession with online gaming. They spent hours on multiplayer games, connected through headsets, strategizing and laughing at jokes only they understood. At least Lucas wouldn't be completely alone. "Just be careful on that trek," Karen said, pulling him into a quick hug before he could protest. "And don't forget to actually sleep instead of staying up all night telling ghost stories." "No promises." Lucas grinned, that familiar mischievous spark lighting up his hazel eyes. He shouldered his backpack and jogged toward the bus, turning once to wave before disappearing into the crowd of campers. Karen stood in the parking lot long after the bus pulled away, watching until the yellow rectangle disappeared around the bend of Route 7. The July sun was climbing higher, burning off the morning mist, and she told herself the uneasy feeling in her chest was just normal maternal worry. Every parent felt this way dropping their kid off at camp. She couldn't have known it would be the last time she'd see that wave for 9 years. July 19, 2007, Day 5 of camp. The wilderness survival trek was supposed to be the highlight of the session. 22 teenagers, divided into groups of 4, each with a trained counselor, would spend 3 days learning primitive camping skills in a designated section of the Green Mountain National Forest. The area had been used for years, marked trails, established camping zones, emergency protocols firmly in place. Lucas's group consisted of himself, Jeremy, a quiet girl named Sarah from Connecticut, and their counselor, Mike Chen, a 24-year-old forestry student who'd worked at the camp for 3 summers. Mike had the easy confidence of someone who'd grown up hiking these mountains, who knew the difference between edible and poisonous berries, who could read weather patterns and cloud formations. "All right, team," Mike said as they gathered around the trail map on the morning of July 19th. "Today we're heading to Eagle Ridge campsite. It's about 6 miles from here, mostly moderate terrain with one steep climb near the end. We'll practice fire starting without matches and learn proper food storage to avoid bear encounters." "Are there actually bears?" Sarah asked nervously, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. "Black bears mostly," Mike replied. "But they're more afraid of you than you are of them. Just make noise on the trail, don't leave food out, and you'll be fine." Lucas and Jeremy exchanged excited glances. This was exactly the kind of adventure they'd been hoping for. Real wilderness experience, not just supervised swimming and arts and crafts sessions. The morning hike went smoothly. The group maintained good pace, stopping occasionally for Mike to point out animal tracks or interesting plant species. Lucas took photos with his phone, even though the screen showed no service in the corner. He'd upload them when they got back to civilization. Around noon, they stopped for lunch near a stream. The water ran clear and cold over smooth stones, creating a peaceful soundtrack as they ate sandwiches and trail mix. Lucas noticed Jeremy had been quieter than usual, staring at his own phone with a frown. "Still no signal?" Lucas asked. "Nah," Jeremy replied. "Was supposed to text Ashley before we left range. She's gonna think I'm ignoring her." Ashley Chen was Jeremy's girlfriend from school, and he'd been worried about maintaining the relationship over the summer. Lucas privately thought long-distance relationships at 14 were doomed, but he kept that opinion to himself. "She'll understand," Lucas said. "It's wilderness survival camp. Kind of the point is being off-grid." Jeremy nodded but didn't look convinced. He pocketed his phone and finished his sandwich in silence. At 2:30 p.m., they reached the steep section Mike had mentioned. The trail switched back and forth up a rocky incline, requiring careful footing and occasional use of hands to steady balance. Sarah was struggling with the climb, her breathing labored in the humid afternoon heat. "Take your time," Mike encouraged. "We're not racing anyone. Lucas, Jeremy, you guys want to scout ahead about 50 yards. Wait at the top where the trail levels out." Lucas welcomed the chance to move at his own pace. He and Jeremy pushed ahead, their younger legs making quick work of the climb. At the summit, the trail did indeed level out, entering a dense grove of white pines. The canopy created cool shadows, a relief after the exposed climb. "Check this out," Jeremy said, pointing to a barely visible side path branching off into deeper woods. "Think that leads anywhere?" Lucas studied the faint trail. It wasn't marked on their map, but countless deer paths crisscrossed these mountains. "Probably just animal traffic. We should wait here, like Mike said." They settled on a fallen log, drinking water and enjoying the breeze. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Lucas started to feel uneasy. "They should have caught up by now," he said. Jeremy frowned. Sarah was moving pretty slow. Maybe give them a few more minutes. 15 minutes. 20. Lucas stood up, walking back to the edge of the steep section. He could see the switchback trail below, but no sign of Mike, Sarah, or any movement. "Mike," Lucas called. His voice echoed through the trees. "Mike." No response. "That's weird," Jeremy said, joining him. Even if Sarah needed a break, Mike would have answered. Lucas pulled out his phone. Still no service. He felt the first real flutter of concern in his chest. This wasn't part of the plan. Counselors didn't just disappear. Maybe they took a different path, Jeremy suggested, though his voice betrayed his own doubt. "We should go back down," Lucas decided. "Make sure they're okay." They descended carefully, retracing their steps down the rocky incline. At the bottom, where the trail met the steeper section, they found Mike's red backpack leaning against a tree. But no Mike, no Sarah. "This doesn't make sense," Lucas said, a cold knot forming in his stomach. Why would he leave his pack? Jeremy's face had gone pale. Maybe Sarah got hurt? Maybe he had to carry her? Then why not call out to us? Why not leave a note? Lucas opened Mike's pack, looking for some explanation. Inside were standard supplies: first aid kit, water bottles, trail map, emergency whistle. Everything a responsible counselor should have except the counselor himself. "We need to go back to base camp," Lucas said firmly. "Get help. This isn't right." They started back down the trail, moving faster now, urgency replacing adventure. But within half a mile, Jeremy stopped abruptly. "Lucas," he said quietly, "are we on the right trail?" Lucas looked around and his stomach dropped. The trail had narrowed considerably and the landmarks didn't match what they'd passed that morning. The distinctive split boulder they'd photographed near the stream was nowhere in sight. "We must have taken a wrong turn," Lucas said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Let's backtrack to where we're sure of the path." They turned around, but the trail seemed to shift and change with each step. Side paths they didn't remember appeared between trees. The afternoon sun, which should have been at their backs heading east, seemed to be coming from the wrong angle entirely. Lucas checked his phone again. Still no service, but the battery was draining faster than it should. 43%. It had been at 78% an hour ago. "I don't understand," Jeremy said, and Lucas heard the edge of panic in his friend's voice. "How did we get this lost?" "We're not lost," Lucas insisted, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "We just need to stay calm and—" His phone buzzed in his hand. A text message, somehow received despite the "no service" indicator. Unknown number. "Looking for your friends? They're safe. But you need to see something first. Follow the deer path at the split pine. Come alone." A friend. Lucas's hands trembled as he stared at the screen. Jeremy leaned over to read it. "That's insane," Jeremy said. "Delete it. We need to get back to—" The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Jeremy should stay on main trail. Call for help there. Signal's better. You come alone or nobody gets found. Trust me. We've been gaming together for months. You know me." Lucas felt ice water flood his veins. Gaming together? He looked at Jeremy, who appeared equally confused. "What does that mean?" Jeremy asked. "Who would know that?" Lucas's mind raced through months of online gameplay, anonymous usernames, voice chats with strangers, the vast community of players he'd teamed up with on various games. Someone who knew they were coming to this camp. Someone who knew they'd be on this trail today. Someone who had made Mike and Sarah disappear. "This is wrong," Lucas whispered. "We need to stay together and—" A third buzz. Unknown. Number, 10 minutes, deer path, alone. Or I leave them here and nobody ever finds them. Your choice, Lucas Foster. His full name. This person knew exactly who he was. "Don't go," Jeremy said urgently. "This is crazy. We find our way back together. Get the cops. And if Mike and Sarah are actually in trouble?" Lucas interrupted. "If someone really has them and we wait hours for rescue? We're in the middle of nowhere, Jeremy, by the time we get help." He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew how vast these mountains were, how easy it would be for someone to disappear permanently in this wilderness. Lucas made his decision. "You go back to the main trail. Follow it downhill. That's always the way out. Get to camp, tell them what happened. I'll check the deer path, see if this is real." "Lucas, no. If I'm not back in an hour, you'll already have help coming." Lucas handed Jeremy his water bottle. "Take this. Move fast. And Jeremy, tell my mom I tried to do the right thing." Before his friend could argue further, Lucas turned and walked toward where he remembered seeing that faint side trail near the split pine. His heart hammered against his ribs. Every survival instinct screamed that he was making a terrible mistake. But the text had known his full name, had known about their gaming, had known exactly where they were. Someone had been watching them, planning this, and now Lucas was walking directly into their trap. Behind him, he heard Jeremy calling his name, but Lucas didn't turn around. He entered the shadows of the deeper forest, where the deer path wound between ancient trees. The last thing Karen Foster's son saw before the forest swallowed him whole was a figure in a dark hoodie, standing perfectly still between two oaks, holding up a phone with a screen that glowed an eerie blue in the shadowed woods. Then everything went dark. July 19th, 2007, 6:47 p.m., Green Mountain Summer Camp Base. Jeremy Patterson burst into the camp director's office, his face flushed crimson from running the entire 6 miles back. Sweat soaked through his shirt, and his legs trembled with exhaustion. Camp Director Patricia Holloway looked up from her desk, startled by the sudden intrusion. "Jeremy? What's—" "Lucas is gone," Jeremy gasped, doubling over to catch his breath. "Mike and Sarah too. Someone— There were texts. We got separated and—" Patricia was already on her feet, reaching for the emergency radio. "Slow down. Start from the beginning. Where's your counselor?" Between ragged breaths, Jeremy explained everything. The hike to Eagle Ridge waiting at the top of the climb, finding Mike's abandoned backpack, the mysterious texts to Lucas's phone, his friend's decision to investigate alone. With each detail, Patricia's expression grew graver. "You're saying Lucas went into the woods alone to meet someone who contacted him by text?" Patricia's voice was sharp with controlled alarm. "How long ago?" Jeremy checked his watch. 2 hours, maybe more. I ran as fast as I could, but I got turned around twice trying to find the main trail. Patricia grabbed the radio, her fingers steady despite the crisis. All units, this is base. We have a code red situation. 3 campers and 1 counselor missing on the Eagle Ridge Trail. Mobilize search teams immediately. I repeat, code red. Within minutes, the camp transformed into a command center. Counselors organized search parties. Maps were spread across tables. The local ranger station was contacted, and Vermont State Police were notified. Patricia pulled Jeremy aside to a quieter corner of the office. I need you to tell me everything about these texts, she said, her tone gentler now. Did Lucas know this person? The text said they'd been gaming together for months, Jeremy replied, his voice cracking with guilt. But we play with tons of people online. Random usernames, you know? Could have been anyone. Did Lucas ever mention meeting someone online? Planning to meet them in person? No, never. Lucas wasn't stupid. He knew better than that. Jeremy's eyes filled with tears. But the text said Mike and Sarah were in danger. What was he supposed to do? Patricia squeezed his shoulder. You did the right thing getting back here. Now we can actually help them. But even as she said it, both of them knew the terrible truth. In 2 hours, Lucas could have traveled miles in any direction. The Green Mountain wilderness covered hundreds of square miles of dense forest, rocky terrain, and hidden valleys. Finding one 14-year-old boy would be like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach. July 19, 2007, 11:33 p.m. Karen Foster's phone rang at 11:33 p.m., jolting her awake from uneasy sleep. She'd been dreaming about Lucas as a toddler, learning to walk, falling and getting back up with determined little grunts. The caller ID showed a Vermont area code she didn't recognize. Hello? Her voice was thick with sleep. Mrs. Foster? This is Patricia Holloway, director of Green Mountain Summer Camp. I'm calling about Lucas. Karen was fully awake now, every nerve ending suddenly on high alert. What happened? Is he hurt? Mrs. Foster, I need you to stay calm. Lucas went missing this afternoon during a wilderness trek. We have search teams deployed, and the state police are coordinating efforts. But I wanted you to hear this directly from me rather than from news reports. The world tilted sideways. Karen gripped the phone so hard her knuckles went white. Missing? What do you mean missing? Patricia explained the situation with professional efficiency. The separated group, Mike's abandoned backpack, the text to Lucas's phone, his decision to investigate alone. With each sentence, Karen felt herself fragmenting into pieces. You let a 14-year-old go into the woods alone? Her voice rose to a shout. How could you let this happen? Mrs. Foster, I understand you're upset. Upset? My son is lost in the mountains because your counselor abandoned his group, because someone was able to contact him and lure him away. Karen was pacing now, her free hand pressed against her forehead. I'm driving up there, right now. Mrs. Foster, I strongly advise you to wait until morning. The roads up here are dangerous at night, and there's nothing you can do that we're not already. Karen hung up. She was already pulling clothes from her dresser, her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the fabric. Her ex-husband David lived in Boston now, remarried with a new family. She dialed his number with trembling fingers. Karen, it's almost midnight. What? Lucas is missing. I'm driving to Vermont. I need you to meet me there. Her voice broke on their son's name. There was a pause. Then David's voice came back, all business. Tell me everything. By 12:15 a.m., Karen was on Interstate 89 North, driving through the darkness toward Vermont. Rain had started to fall, fat drops splattering against her windshield. She kept Lucas's last words running through her mind on an endless loop. It's going to be epic. Epic. Her 14-year-old son had thought he was going on an adventure. Instead, he'd walked into a nightmare. July 20th, 2007, 6:00 a.m., Search Command Center. Dawn broke gray and sullen over the Green Mountain forest. Vermont State Police Detective Robert Marsh stood before a topographical map marked with concentric search zones, radio zones, and last known positions. At 53, with silver hair and a face weathered by decades of mountain rescues, Marsh had seen his share of missing persons cases. Too many of them ended in tragedy. "All right, listen up," he called to the assembled search teams. 30 volunteers, 10 state troopers, 4 forest rangers, and 3 K-9 units filled the camp's main lodge. "We have 4 missing persons. Lucas Foster, age 14, Jeremy Patterson's friend, Mike Chen, 24, camp counselor, and Sarah Brennan, 14. Last confirmed sighting was yesterday at 2:30 p.m. near the Eagle Ridge Trail, grid coordinates Echo 7. He pointed to the map. K-9 units will start from where Jeremy found the abandoned backpack. We'll work in expanding concentric circles. Team Alpha takes the north quadrant, Bravo takes east, Charlie west, Delta south. You all have your radios set to channel 7. Report anything: clothing, footprints, disturbed vegetation, anything." A younger trooper raised his hand. "What about the texts to the foster kid's phone? Can we trace those?" "Working on it," Marsh replied. "Tech team is analyzing the phone records, but in 2007, triangulating cell signals in mountain terrain is difficult at best. The texts came from a prepaid burner phone, likely purchased with cash. No registration, no way to track the buyer." Karen Foster, who'd been standing quietly at the back of the room, stepped forward. "What about Mike Chen and the girl, Sarah? How do they fit into this?" Marsh's expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Foster, I was hoping to speak with you privately, but since you're here, we found Mike Chen and Sarah Brennan at 4:30 this morning." Karen's heart leaped. "You found them? Are they... Where's Lucas?" "They were discovered 2 miles off trail, unconscious but alive. Both had been drugged. We found injection marks on their necks. They're at Porter Hospital now, being treated for exposure and whatever sedative was used. Neither has any memory of what happened after stopping for lunch yesterday." "But Lucas wasn't with them?" Karen's voice was barely a whisper. "No, ma'am. And that's what concerns us most. Whoever did this specifically separated Lucas from the group. The texts, the instructions to come alone. This appears to be a targeted abduction." The word hit Karen like a physical blow. Abduction, not lost, not accidentally wandering off trail. Someone had taken her son. "Who would target a 14-year-old boy?" she asked, though she already knew the terrible possibilities. Online predators, human traffickers, the monsters parents warned their children about but never truly believed would touch their own lives. "That's what we're trying to determine," Marsh said. "We need access to Lucas's computer, his online accounts, any communication he might have had with strangers. The texts mentioned gaming together for months. That's our primary lead." Karen nodded numbly. "His computer is at home. I'll drive back and get it." "We'll send an officer with you. Time is critical in cases like these." Marsh didn't need to explain what he meant by critical. Everyone in the room understood that the first 48 hours were crucial. After that, the chances of finding a missing child alive dropped dramatically with each passing day. David Foster arrived at 7:15 a.m., his BMW sedan skidding to a stop in the gravel parking lot. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight, his usually impeccable appearance disheveled, his tie hanging loose around his neck. Karen met him at the entrance to the command center, and for a moment they just stood there, 2 people who'd once loved each other enough to create a child, now united only by terror for that child's safety. "Any news?" David asked. "They found the counselor and the other girl, drugged but alive. Lucas is still missing." Karen's voice was mechanical, reciting facts because feeling emotions would destroy her. "They think someone targeted him specifically." David's face went pale. "Targeted? Who would?" "We don't know. They want access to his computer, his online activity." "I'll call our lawyer," David said immediately. "Make sure everything's done properly. Preserve the chain of evidence." "David, this isn't a business deal," Karen snapped. "Our son is missing." "I know that," David shouted back, then caught himself, lowering his voice. I know. I'm trying to help the only way I know how, by making sure they have everything they need to find him. A trooper approached them, young and earnest-looking. Mr. and Mrs. Foster? I'm Officer Stevens. I'll be accompanying you back to your residence to collect Lucas's computer and any other relevant materials. We should leave as soon as possible. Karen nodded. My house is 3 hours south. We can take my car. I'll follow in mine, David said. I want to be there. As they walked to the parking lot, Karen glanced back at the forest where search teams were already disappearing into the trees. Somewhere in those endless miles of wilderness, her son was either hiding, hurt, or being held by someone who'd planned this abduction with chilling precision. July 20th, 2007, 2:30 p.m., Foster residence, Manchester, New Hampshire. Lucas's bedroom looked exactly as he'd left it 5 days ago. Unmade bed, posters of video game characters on the walls, dirty laundry and a hamper by the door. Karen stood in the doorway, Officer Stevens and a police tech specialist behind her, and felt her composure finally crack. This was her baby's room, the same room where she'd read him bedtime stories, where he'd played with action figures, where he'd slowly transformed from child to teenager. Mrs. Foster, Stevens's voice was gentle. We need to access the computer now. Karen nodded, stepping aside. The tech specialist, a woman in her 30s named Detective Lisa Park, moved efficiently to Lucas's desk where his desktop computer sat silent. She powered it on and the machine hummed to life, displaying a login screen with Lucas's username. Lucas, the Night 14. Do you know his password? Park asked. Karen shook her head. He never told me. Privacy, you know. Park pulled out a USB drive. That's okay. We have tools for this. Within minutes, she'd bypassed the password and was navigating through Lucas's files. Email accounts, web browser history, instant messaging logs, game accounts. 14 years of digital life spread across folders and applications. Here's his main gaming platform, Park said, opening a program called Game Connect. It was a service that allowed players to find matches, chat, and organize multiplayer sessions. Lucas's profile showed he'd been active almost daily, with hundreds of friends and contacts. Park started scrolling through chat logs, her expression growing more focused. Mrs. Foster, did Lucas ever mention someone with the username PhantomFriend87? I don't think so, Karen said, moving closer to look at the screen. Why? Because this user has been messaging Lucas almost daily for the past 3 months. Look at the progression. Park clicked through the message history, and Karen felt sick as the pattern became clear. The early messages were innocuous, game strategy, jokes, casual conversation. But gradually, PhantomFriend87 had steered the conversation toward more personal topics, asking about Lucas's real life, his school, his family situation, his summer plans. And Lucas, excited to have found a friend who seemed genuinely interested in him, had answered everything. He told this person about the summer camp, Park said, pointing to a message from late June. Look, yeah, going to Vermont for 2 weeks in July should be cool. Wilderness survival stuff. Karen's hand flew to her mouth. Oh God. Lucas told him exactly where he'd be. Park continued scrolling, and the messages grew more disturbing. PhantomFriend87 had sent Lucas links to websites, asked him to download certain programs, slowly built a relationship of trust. And then, 3 days before Lucas left for camp, a final message. PhantomFriend87. Have an awesome time in Vermont, buddy. Who knows? Maybe we'll run into each other someday. The world's smaller than you think. Lucas, the Night 14. Ha ha ha, that would be epic. Later, dude. The casual innocence of Lucas's response made Karen want to scream. Her son had been groomed, systematically manipulated over months, and he'd never suspected a thing. Neither had she. She'd thought he was just playing video games in his room, harmlessly passing time like millions of other teenagers. I need to make some calls, Park said, already pulling out her phone. This gives us a strong pattern of online predation. We can subpoena Game Connect's records, trace IP addresses, Find out who's behind this account. Officer Stevens guided Karen to Lucas's bed, where she sat down heavily. David appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. He'd heard everything from the hallway. "How did we not see this?" he asked quietly. "How did we let this happen?" "Because predators are experts at hiding," Park answered, overhearing. "They know exactly how to approach kids, how to build trust without raising red flags." Lucas did nothing wrong. He thought he was talking to another teenager who shared his interests. But Karen barely heard the detective's words. She was staring at Lucas's gaming headset hanging on the back of his chair, imagining her son sitting in this very spot, laughing and chatting with someone he thought was a friend, someone who was actually planning to take him. "Find him," Karen said, her voice hard as steel. "I don't care what it takes. Find whoever did this and bring my son home." July 21st, 2007, Day 3, search area expanded. The search had grown exponentially. Local news crews had arrived, broadcasting live from the camp. Volunteers from surrounding towns poured in, organizing their own search parties. Lucas's face was plastered across newspapers and television screens throughout New England. A school photo from the previous fall, showing him smiling awkwardly in a button-down shirt his mother had made him wear for picture day. But the forest kept its secrets. K9 units tracked Lucas's scent from the main trail to the area where the deer path diverged, then lost it completely. It was as if he'd simply vanished into thin air, or been picked up by vehicle, though the nearest forest road was 2 miles away through extremely rough terrain. Detective Marsh coordinated with FBI agents now assigned to the case. A 14-year-old transported across state lines constituted federal jurisdiction, and the Bureau brought resources the state police couldn't match: behavioral analysts, technical experts, nationwide database access. Special Agent Diana Torres, a veteran of the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit, set up operations in the camp's main building. At 42, with sharp dark eyes and an intensity that made people instinctively straighten their posture, she'd worked hundreds of child abduction cases. She knew the statistics cold. If Lucas wasn't found within 72 hours, the likelihood of recovery alive dropped below 30%. They were now at hour 56. "Talk to me about Phantom Friend 87, Torres said to the tech team analyzing Lucas's computer. "What have we learned?" A young analyst named Marcus Chen looked up from his laptop. The account was created specifically to contact Lucas. No other message history, no other friends on the platform. Whoever made it knew exactly what they were doing, used public Wi-Fi hotspots across 3 states to log in, never from the same location twice. Massachusetts, New York, Vermont, covered their tracks perfectly. "But they made one mistake," Torres said. "They actually showed up in person. That means vehicle, possibly witnesses, physical evidence. Nobody moves through the world completely invisible." Marsh approached with a new piece of information. Game company finally got back to us with full account details. Phantom Friend 87's profile listed ages 16, interests as gaming and outdoor adventure. The profile picture was a stock image stolen from a teenager's public Instagram account, kid from Oregon who's never heard of Lucas Foster. "Classic catfishing," Torres muttered. "Build a false identity, gain trust, make the approach." "What about the IP addresses?" "All public locations," Marcus replied. "Coffee shops, libraries, internet cafes. But I cross-referenced the login times and locations with commercial vehicle tracking databases. Long shot, but sometimes we get lucky." He pulled up a map showing the Wi-Fi hotspot locations marked with red dots and overlay routes traveled by commercial vehicles during the relevant time periods. "There's one vehicle that passed within a quarter mile of every single hotspot within hours of each login. A white panel van registered to Vance Technical Services based in Burlington, Vermont. Owner and operator Simon Vance, age 37, computer repair and network installation specialist." Torres felt the familiar electric tingle that came with a solid lead. "Background on Vance?" "Running it now," Marsh said, already typing on another computer. Results populated the screen. Simon Arthur Vance, born 1970 in Portland, Maine. No criminal record, no arrests. Military service, Army, honorable discharge 1993. Operated his technical services business for 12 years. Mostly commercial clients. Lived alone in a house on the outskirts of Burlington. Too clean, Torres said immediately. 37-year-old single male with no criminal history, technical expertise, lives alone, operates a business that gives him legitimate reasons to travel? That's exactly the profile. Profile for what? Karen Foster had entered the command center unnoticed, with David close behind. She'd been listening. Torres turned to face the parents, choosing her words carefully. Mrs. Foster, Mr. Foster, we may have identified a suspect. I want to be very clear that we don't have proof yet, but we're moving quickly to— What's his name? Karen interrupted. Where does he live? I can't share those details while the investigation is active, Torres said firmly, but I can tell you that we're executing a search warrant within the next 2 hours. If Lucas is being held, we will find him. David put his arm around Karen's shoulders. Let them do their job. But Karen shook him off, stepping closer to Torres. My son has been missing for 3 days. 3 days in the hands of someone who drugged 2 teenagers and lured a 14-year-old into the woods. You tell me right now, do you think Lucas is still alive? The command center had gone quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting for Torres's answer. I think, Torres said carefully, that whoever took Lucas went to enormous effort to take him specifically. That kind of planning usually indicates intent to keep the victim alive, at least initially. So yes, Mrs. Foster, I believe there's reason to hope. It wasn't much, but it was all Karen had to hold on to. July 21st, 2007, 4:47 p.m., Vance residence, Burlington, Vermont. The house sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by trees that provided natural privacy. Simon Vance's white panel van was parked in the driveway, company logo visible on the side. Vance Technical Services, Network Solutions for Business. FBI tactical teams surrounded the property, rifles ready, vests marked with bold yellow letters. Torres stood behind the command vehicle with Marsh, watching through binoculars as the entry team approached the front door. FBI search warrant. Open the door. No response. The team waited the required interval, then used a battering ram. The door splintered inward, and agents flooded into the house, shouting commands. Clear! Clear! Basement door locked from outside. Torres felt her pulse spike. Locked from outside. That meant something or someone was being kept in. Breach it, she ordered over the radio. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the communications channel, followed by footsteps descending stairs. Torres held her breath, counting seconds. Then a voice, shocked and urgent. Agent Torres, you need to see this. We've got computer equipment down here, sophisticated setup, but no Lucas Foster. The basement's empty. Torres felt her stomach drop. They'd been so sure. The evidence had pointed so clearly to— Wait, the voice continued. There's food wrappers, a camping mattress, zip ties. Someone was definitely held here, recently. And there's something else. A calendar on the wall, dates marked through today. He knew we were coming. Torres cursed under her breath. Vance had moved Lucas. The question was where and how much of a head start he had. Inside the house, agents were finding more evidence. The burner phone used to send texts to Lucas, detailed files on the boy downloaded from his social media accounts, maps of the Green Mountain National Forest with specific trails marked. This was absolutely their suspect. But Simon Vance and Lucas Foster were both gone. Issue an APB for the van, Torres ordered. Every state from here to the Canadian border. Alert Border Patrol. Check traffic cameras on every major route. He's got maybe 4 hours head start maximum. As law enforcement mobilized for a multi-state manhunt, Torres thought about Karen Foster's question, do you think Lucas is still alive? The answer was more complicated now. Vance had planned this abduction meticulously, groomed Lucas for months, held him in a prepared location. That level of organization suggested a long-term goal, not a quick disposal. But now, with police closing in, Vance had become unpredictable, and unpredictable predators were the most dangerous kind. Somewhere on the roads of New England, a white panel van was driving toward an unknown destination, carrying a 14-year-old boy and the man who'd stolen him. And the clock was still ticking. July 21st, 2007, 9:15 p.m., Interstate 89 North. The APB went out across 6 states within an hour of discovering the empty basement. Every state trooper, local police department, and border patrol agent from Vermont to Quebec received the same information. White panel van, Vermont plates, driver Simon Arthur Vance, victim Lucas Foster, consider armed and dangerous. But Simon Vance hadn't survived 12 years operating in the shadows by being careless. At a rest stop 40 miles from his Burlington home, he'd already switched the panel van's license plates with one stolen from a similar vehicle 3 weeks earlier. He'd purchased a magnetic sign from a print shop, cash transaction, fake name, that now covered his company logo with generic text reading Morrison Plumbing Services. The van that police were searching for no longer existed, at least not visibly. In the back of the van, behind a false panel Vance had installed months ago, Lucas Foster lay on a thin camping mattress, zip-tied and sedated. Not unconscious. Vance needed him compliant but awake. Just dulled enough to prevent panic or resistance. The boy's eyes were half open, glassy with confusion and fear. "Almost there, buddy," Vance said softly, glancing in the rearview mirror at the concealed compartment. "Just a little further and we'll be safe. You'll understand eventually. I'm not the bad guy here." Lucas tried to speak, but his tongue felt thick and uncooperative. The world swam in and out of focus. He remembered fragments, following the deer path, seeing the figure in the hoodie, then a sharp pain in his neck and darkness swallowing everything. When he'd woken, he was in a basement room with concrete walls and a single barred window near the ceiling. Days had passed. He didn't know how many. Vance had brought food, water spoken to him in that same gentle voice that now made Lucas's skin crawl. "I've been planning this for so long," Vance had told him during one of those basement visits. "We're going to build something amazing together, Lucas. You have no idea how talented you are with computers. I've been watching your progress, your coding experiments, your potential. The world doesn't appreciate people like us, but together we can do incredible things." Lucas had realized with horror that Phantom Friend A7 wasn't some teenager who'd catfished him. It was this man, this adult who'd spent months grooming him, learning his patterns, manipulating him into the perfect trap. Now the van was moving again, and Lucas could hear police sirens in the distance, growing fainter. They were getting away. July 22nd, 2007, 2:33 a.m. FBI Command Center Agent Torres hadn't slept in 36 hours. Coffee and adrenaline kept her moving, kept her sharp, but she knew she'd crash soon. The command center buzzed with activity even at this late hour. Analysts reviewing traffic camera footage, agents coordinating with Canadian Border Patrol, tech specialists tracking Vance's digital footprint. "We've got something," Marcus Chen called out, waving Torres over to his workstation. Vance's bank account shows a cash withdrawal of $8,000 2 weeks ago. Large enough to survive off-grid for months, small enough not to trigger automatic federal reporting. "He was preparing to run," Torres said. "This wasn't panic. He had an escape plan ready." "There's more," Marcus continued, pulling up another screen. "I've been going through Vance's business records. Officially, he does commercial network installation. But buried in his invoices, I found something interesting. He did work for a property management company in Quebec last year. They oversee vacation rentals across eastern Canada." Torres felt that electric tingle again. He'd know about empty properties, remote locations, places where he could hide. "Exactly. I'm cross-referencing the management company's rental listings with properties currently vacant. There are 43 possibles within a 6-hour drive of Burlington. Narrow it by isolation factor," Torres ordered. "He needs somewhere truly remote. No neighbors, poor cell coverage. And check rental histories. Has he ever stayed at any of these properties before? Maybe he's been scouting locations." As Marcus worked, Detective Marsh approached with Karen and David Foster. The parents looked hollowed out, running on nothing but desperate hope. "Agent Torres," Karen said, her voice hoarse. "They said you might have a lead. Please tell me you're close to finding him." Torres gestured to the map on the screen. "We believe Vance crossed into Canada hours ago. He's familiar with properties in Quebec, and we're systematically checking every possible location. Mrs. Foster, I need to be honest with you. This could take time. But we have assets across the border cooperating fully. We will find your son." "How can he just disappear like this?" David asked, frustration cracking through his exhaustion. "There are cameras everywhere, border checkpoints, witnesses. Someone had to see something." "Vance is highly intelligent and tech-savvy," Torres explained. "He knows how surveillance systems work, where the blind spots are, how to avoid detection. But everyone makes mistakes eventually. Our job is to catch him when he does." Karen stared at the map showing the vast expanse of Canadian wilderness where her son might be hidden. 43 properties, thousands of square miles, an intelligent predator who'd been planning for months. "What happens if you don't find him in time?" she asked quietly. "What does someone like Vance want with a 14-year-old boy?" Torres chose her words carefully. Based on the evidence in his house, Vance appears to have targeted Lucas for his technical skills. The computer equipment in the basement, the coding books, the setup. It suggests he wanted Lucas as some kind of protege or accomplice. That's actually advantageous for us. "How is that advantageous?" David demanded. "Because it means he needs Lucas functional and cooperative. He's invested too much time in planning to cause immediate harm. That gives us a window to find them." What Torres didn't say was that functional and cooperative could mean years of psychological manipulation, isolation, and abuse. That window wouldn't stay open forever. July 23rd, 2007, Day 5, Public Appeal. The press conference was held on the steps of the Vermont State House. Karen Foster stood at a podium bristling with microphones, news cameras capturing every tremor in her voice, every tear that she fought to hold back. Agent Torres stood beside her, along with Detective Marsh and representatives from the FBI's Missing Children Division. "My son Lucas is 14 years old," Karen began, reading from a prepared statement because looking at the cameras without structure would shatter her completely. "He loves video games, he's teaching himself to code, and he makes terrible jokes that he thinks are hilarious. 5 days ago, someone took him from me, someone who spent months gaining his trust online, who planned this abduction with calculated precision." She held up an enlarged photo of Lucas, not the school picture that had been circulating, but a candid shot from their backyard the week before camp. He was laughing at something off camera, genuine joy on his face. The last moment of innocence before everything changed. "If you have seen this boy, if you have any information about his whereabouts, please contact the FBI immediately. And if the person who took him is watching this..." Karen's voice broke, but she pushed through. "Please don't hurt my son. Whatever you want, whatever you think you're accomplishing, he's just a child. Please let him come home." The press erupted with questions, but Torres stepped forward to field them. Karen stepped back, and David caught her before her legs gave out. The cameras captured it all. The raw grief of parents confronting every parent's worst nightmare. What the cameras didn't capture was Simon Vance, 200 miles away in a rented cabin outside Sherbrooke, Quebec, watching the press conference on a laptop with satellite internet. Lucas sat beside him, still groggy from sedatives, watching his mother's anguish on the screen. "See what you've done?" Vance said softly, not unkindly. "All this chaos, all this pain. And for what? So you could go back to that ordinary life, wasting your potential in some suburban school? You're meant for more than that, Lucas. I saw it in you from the first time we talked online." Lucas wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything but sit there watching his mother cry. But the drugs and the zip ties and the sheer impossibility of escape kept him frozen. Vance had explained the situation with frightening clarity. They were in Canada now, in the middle of nowhere, and no one was looking for them here. Even if Lucas somehow got free, he'd die of exposure in the wilderness before finding help. "We're going to wait here a few weeks," Vance continued, closing the laptop. Let the initial search frenzy die down. Then we'll move to our permanent location. I've got everything set up. Computers, internet access, projects that will blow your mind. You're going to learn things about hacking, about networks, about the true potential of technology that no school could ever teach you. My mom, Lucas managed to whisper, his voice barely working. Your mom will grieve and eventually move on, Vance said, not cruelly but matter-of-factly. That's what people do. But you and we're going to create something revolutionary. In time, you'll understand. You'll even thank me. Lucas closed his eyes, tears sliding down his cheeks. He didn't believe he'd ever understand. But trapped in this cabin with a man who saw him as a tool, as a project, as anything except a human being with a family who loved him, understanding didn't matter. Survival was all he had left. August 2007, 3 weeks after the abduction. The search for Lucas Foster gradually wound down. FBI resources were redirected to newer cases with fresher leads. The command center at Green Mountain Summer Camp was dismantled. News vans moved on to other tragedies. The 43 properties in Quebec had all been checked, some multiple times, with no sign of Vance or Lucas. Simon Vance had vanished as completely as his victim. Karen Foster refused to accept it. She kept Lucas's bedroom exactly as he'd left it, his phone number active, his computer preserved in case new evidence emerged. She started a Facebook page called Find Lucas Foster that she updated daily with memories, pleas, and information. She attended every support group for parents of missing children, spoke at awareness events, became an advocate for online safety legislation. But at night, alone in the house, she allowed herself to imagine the worst, that Lucas was already dead, buried somewhere in the Canadian wilderness. That she'd spent the last of her son's life nagging him about zipping his jacket instead of telling him how much she loved him. How proud she was. How he made every day brighter just by existing. David had thrown himself into work, remarried within 2 years, started a new family. Karen couldn't forgive him for that, for moving forward as if Lucas could be replaced. They stopped speaking except through lawyers handling the divorce that had been inevitable once their son disappeared. 2010, 3 years later, Agent Torres had been promoted, transferred to the FBI's Washington field office. But she kept Lucas Foster's case file on her desk, reviewing it periodically for anything they'd missed. The case haunted her in ways others didn't. The meticulous grooming, the perfect execution, the complete disappearance. It represented a kind of predator who could strike again. She'd tracked Simon Vance's digital footprint obsessively. His business accounts had gone dormant. No credit card usage, no bank transactions, no tax filings. Either he was living entirely off cash or he was dead. Torres suspected the former. Somewhere, Vance had built a new life with a new identity. And Lucas Foster, if he'd survived, had been living in captivity for 3 years. 2013, 6 years gone. Karen attended a vigil on the anniversary of Lucas's disappearance. 16 people showed up, down from the hundreds who'd participated in the first-year memorial. Public memory was short. Missing children became statistics, faces on milk cartons that people glanced at and forgot. She'd aged a decade in 6 years. Gray streaked her hair, lines etched deep around her eyes and mouth. Friends had stopped calling, tired of her inability to move past her grief. Her sister had gently suggested therapy, antidepressants, learning to let go. But how did you let go of your child? How did you accept that somewhere in the world your son might be alive, might be suffering, might be calling for you, and you couldn't reach him? 2016, 9 years Lucas Foster would be 23 years old now. Karen had imagined it 1,000 times. What he'd look like as an adult, whether he'd have gone to college, what career he might have chosen. In her mind, he was frozen at 14, that last morning at the bus, waving goodbye with his backpack and his terrible jokes and his whole life ahead of him. She still paid his cell phone bill every month. The old number had been transferred to a new smartphone years ago when the flip phone became obsolete, then connected to an iCloud account when she digitized all his old photos. It was stupid, she knew, throwing money away on a ghost. But it was the one tangible connection she had left. Karen was at work on March 15, 2016. when her own phone buzzed with a notification she'd never expected to see. Lucas Foster's iPhone has been activated and is online. She stared at the screen, convinced she was hallucinating. The Find My iPhone app showed a location pin dropping in real time: Sherbrooke, Quebec. The device was active, connected to Wi-Fi, transmitting its location. Karen's hands shook so badly she could barely dial Agent Torres's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She tried again and again. Finally, a text response. "In a meeting. What's urgent?" Karen typed with trembling fingers. "Lucas's phone is online. Sherbrooke, Quebec. Please help." The response came within seconds. "Don't move. I'm calling you now." March 15th, 2016, 3:47 p.m., FBI field office. Torres had the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on the line within minutes. The location was precise: a residential address in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Sherbrooke. Database records showed the property was rented under the name Martin Pierce, a software consultant who'd lived there for 8 years. 8 years, Torres said to the RCMP sergeant coordinating the response. "That's how long he's been there. 1 year after the abduction." "We're mobilizing a tactical team," Sergeant Marie Duchamp replied. "ETA 20 minutes. If the boy is there, if he's alive, we'll get him out." Torres was already booking a flight to Montreal. She called Karen Foster from the airport. "Mrs. Foster, we have a location. Canadian police are moving in right now. I need you to understand, 9 years is a long time. We don't know what condition Lucas is in, or if this is even really him. Someone could have found the old phone, activated it." "It's him," Karen interrupted, her voice certain, despite the tears streaming down her face. "I know it's him. I can feel it." Torres didn't have the heart to argue. "I'm flying to Montreal now. If Lucas is there, if we recover him safely, you'll be the first person I call. I promise you that." March 15th, 2016, 4:23 p.m., Sherbrooke, Quebec. The house looked ordinary. A small 2-story structure with vinyl siding, a well-maintained lawn, curtains drawn across the windows. Neighbors would later tell reporters that Martin Pierce was quiet, polite, kept to himself. They'd never suspected anything wrong. The RCMP tactical team surrounded the property. Duchamp gave the signal, and they breached both doors simultaneously, front and back. Officers flooded through the house, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Police, show your hands!" They found Simon Vance, now Martin Pierce, in the basement office, hands already raised in surrender. At 45, he'd grown a beard and gained weight, but facial recognition software would later confirm his identity with 99.8% certainty. And in a small room off the basement, behind a locked door, they found Lucas Foster. He was alive. 23 years old, pale from years of limited sunlight, thin but not malnourished. He sat at a computer workstation, his eyes wide with shock and confusion as armed officers entered the room. He looked nothing like the 14-year-old boy in the photos. Broader in the shoulders, taller, his face angular and mature, but DNA testing would prove beyond doubt who he was. "Lucas Foster?" Duchamp asked gently, holstering her weapon. "It's okay. You're safe now. We're taking you home." Lucas stared at her, and for a long moment he didn't speak. Then, in a voice rusty from years of isolation, "My mom. Is she still alive?" Duchamp felt tears prick her eyes despite her professional composure. "Yes. She never stopped looking for you. She's waiting for you to come home." Lucas Foster, missing for 9 years, collapsed into sobs that shook his entire body. 9 years of captivity, of manipulation, of being told that his old life had moved on without him, shattered in a single moment. He was going home. March 16th, 2016, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Headquarters, Montreal. Lucas sat in a comfortable interview room designed for trauma victims. Soft lighting, plush chairs, tissues on the table, a window showing trees instead of concrete walls. Detective Sergeant Marie Duchamp sat across from him, along with Agent Diana Torres, who'd arrived on the first flight from Washington. A trauma counselor named Dr. Sarah Mitchell observed from the corner, ready to intervene if Lucas showed signs of distress. He looked fragile in the daylight. 9 years in basement rooms had left his skin pale, his body adapted to artificial light and limited space. He wore borrowed RCMP sweatpants and a t-shirt several sizes too large, his own clothes taken as evidence. His hands trembled constantly, whether from withdrawal, shock, or the sheer overwhelming reality of freedom, no one could say. "Lucas," Torres began gently, "I know this is difficult, but we need to understand what happened. You're safe now. Simon Vance is in custody and will never hurt you or anyone else again. But we need your help to build the case against him." Lucas nodded, staring at his hands. "How long was I gone?" 9 years, 2 months, and 1 day, Torres said. "I thought maybe 7, 8 years, lost track after a while." His voice was soft, careful, as if he'd forgotten how to speak at normal volume. "He told me everyone had moved on, that my mom had another family, that no one was looking anymore. Was that true?" "No," Torres said firmly. "Your mother never stopped searching. She kept your phone active all these years, hoping. That's why we found you, because you activated a device connected to your old account." Lucas's eyes widened. "The iPhone, I didn't know it would. I just wanted to see if the internet still worked the same way, if I could remember my old passwords." He looked at Torres with sudden fear. "Did I mess everything up? The activation? Will that affect the case?" "You saved yourself," Torres said. "That activation led us directly to you. Lucas, can you tell us what happened that day in Vermont? In the forest?" Lucas took a shaky breath. "Phantom Friend 87. I thought he was my friend, another gamer around my age. We talked for months about games, about life, everything. He seemed to understand me in ways my real-life friends didn't." He paused, shame coloring his face. "I was stupid." "You weren't stupid," Dr. Mitchell interjected from her corner. "You were a child being manipulated by an expert predator. That's not your fault." Lucas continued. "When I got those texts in the forest saying Mike and Sarah were in danger, I believed it because I trusted him. I followed the deer path and saw someone in a hoodie. I called out, thinking it was my gaming friend coming to help. Then I felt something sharp in my neck and everything went black." "Sedative injection," Duchamp noted. "We found the empty vial in his old Burlington house. When I woke up, I was in a basement. Concrete walls, one small window. Vance, I didn't know his real name for years. He made me call him Simon. He explained that he'd rescued me. That's how he put it, rescued. He said the world was dangerous, that people would try to exploit my talents, but he'd protect me and teach me real skills." Torres leaned forward. "What kind of skills?" Lucas's expression darkened. "Hacking, network penetration, identity theft, credit card fraud. He had this whole operation set up. He'd take contracts from people on the dark web, break into corporate databases, steal information, create fake identities. And he made me help him." "Made you how?" Duchamp asked carefully. "At first, he was patient, teaching me like a mentor, showing me how systems worked, how to find vulnerabilities. I was 14 and honestly fascinated by the technical side, but when I started asking about going home, about my family, he changed. He'd lock me in the room for days, no food except crackers and water. He'd show me fake news articles saying my mom had died, that there was no home to return to." Lucas's hands clenched into fists. Then he'd be kind again. Bring good food, new books, let me have computer time. Said he was sorry for being harsh, but I needed to understand reality. It was, he struggled for the word, psychological warfare, I think. Breaking me down and building me back up as someone who'd obey. "Did he physically harm you?" Torres asked, though she braced herself for the answer. "Not really. A few times he grabbed me, shook me when I refused to work. But mostly it was isolation and manipulation. He was smarter than violence. He knew physical scars would be evidence, but mental control, that doesn't show up in photographs." Dr. Mitchell made a note. "Lucas, did Vance ever sexually abuse you?" Lucas shook his head firmly. "No, never. I think he genuinely saw me as some kind of protege or partner. like he was training an apprentice. It was sick, but not in that way. Torres felt a measure of relief. The psychological damage was severe enough without adding sexual trauma to the list. Tell us about the house in Sherbrooke. How long were you there? We moved there maybe a year after he took me. I was still 15. The basement was set up like a workspace, computers, servers, networking equipment. He'd go upstairs to sleep, but I stayed down there. The door had an electronic lock he controlled from his phone. Even when I wasn't physically restrained, I was still caged. Did you ever try to escape? Duchamp asked. Once, when I was 16. I managed to pick the lock using a paperclip, something I'd learned from a video before he took me. Got upstairs, found the front door, but the neighborhood was empty at 3 a.m., and I didn't know where I was. Canada? Still Vermont? I ran for maybe 10 minutes before Vance caught me in his van. Lucas's voice went flat, recounting the memory. He didn't punish me immediately, just drove me back, locked me in the room, and left me there for 2 weeks. No light except what came under the door. Barely any food. When he finally let me out, he explained very calmly that if I tried again, he'd hurt someone. He'd find Jeremy or my mom and make them pay for my mistake. I believed him. I never tried again. The room was silent, except for the scratch of Duchamp's pen on paper. Torres felt the familiar rage that came with these cases. Rage at predators who broke children and remade them into something compliant and hopeless. Why did you activate the iPhone yesterday? Torres asked. After 9 years, why then? Lucas looked up, and for the first time, there was something like determination in his eyes. Because I'm not 16 anymore. I'm 23. And last week, Vance told me he was planning to take another kid. Some 15-year-old he'd been grooming online, same pattern as me. He showed me the messages, proud of his work. Said I'd have a little brother to help train soon. Torres felt ice in her veins. Do you know the target's identity? Username was Knight Rider 2001, lives somewhere in Massachusetts. Vance was planning to make contact in person next month. Lucas's jaw tightened. I couldn't let him do it again. Couldn't let another kid go through what I did, so I found that old iPhone in a box of his equipment, stuff from his original Burlington house that he'd kept. I charged it, turned it on, and hoped someone was still monitoring it. Hoped my mom had kept the account active like he said she wouldn't. She did, Torres said softly. She paid that bill every single month for 9 years. Lucas's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I want to see her, please. I need to see my mom. Dr. Mitchell moved to Lucas's side, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. We'll arrange that, very soon. But Lucas, you need to understand. You've been through extreme trauma. Reintegration will be difficult. Your mother will be overjoyed, but the relationship will need time to rebuild. You're not the 14-year-old boy she remembers, and she's not exactly the same person either. I don't care, Lucas said fiercely. I just need her to know I never forgot her, that I tried to come home, that I'm sorry it took so long. Torres stood, signaling to Duchamp. We have enough for now. Lucas, you're incredibly brave for telling us this, and the information about the other potential victim. You may have just saved that kid's life. As they left the interview room, Torres immediately pulled out her phone, dialing the FBI's Cybercrimes Division. I need an urgent trace on a username, Knight Rider 2001, active on gaming platforms likely based in Massachusetts. Potential target of a serial predator. Flag the account. Identify the user. Get local police for a wellness check within the hour. Behind them, through the one-way glass, Dr. Mitchell sat with Lucas as he cried. 9 years of suppressed grief finally released in racking sobs. He'd survived. He'd resisted becoming what Vance tried to make him, and he'd found the courage to save someone else. That took strength most adults never had to summon. March 16th, 7:30 p.m., Montreal Airport. Karen Foster's flight landed in a snowstorm. She didn't care. She'd have walked through fire to reach Montreal. Agent Torres met her at arrivals, and the look on the agent's face told Karen everything before words were necessary. He's alive, he's safe, and he's asking for you. Karen's legs almost gave out. Torres caught her elbow, steadying her. Mrs. Foster Karen, I need to prepare you. Lucas has been through severe psychological trauma. 9 years in captivity, isolated, manipulated. He's not the boy you remember. He's a young man now, and he's going to need extensive therapy and support. I don't care, Karen said, echoing her son's words from hours earlier. I just need to see him. Torres drove her to a secure RCMP facility where Lucas was being held for his own protection, until Vance's arraignment. They walked down sterile corridors, past offices and interview rooms, until they reached a private meeting space. He's inside, Torres said. Take all the time you need. Karen's hand trembled on the doorknob. 9 years, 287 days of not knowing, of hoping, of imagining both the best and worst possibilities. And now, on the other side of this door was the answer to all of it. She opened the door. Lucas stood by the window, his back to her, shoulders hunched. He'd grown so tall. When he turned around, Karen saw her baby's eyes in a stranger's face. Older, haunted, but unmistakably her son. Mom, he whispered. Karen crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled him into her arms, holding him as tightly as she had the day he was born. Lucas collapsed into her embrace, and they both cried. For the years stolen, for the pain endured, for the impossible miracle of reunion. I never stopped looking. Karen sobbed into his shoulder. Never. I knew you were out there. I know, Lucas said. I felt it. Even when he told me you'd forgotten, I felt it. They stood there, mother and son, 2 people who'd been torn apart by evil and brought back together by persistence, hope, and one activated iPhone. Outside the room, Agent Torres wiped her own eyes and turned away, giving them privacy. Some cases, despite everything, had happy endings. April 2016, 3 weeks after rescue. The media frenzy was unlike anything Karen had anticipated. Lucas Foster's rescue became international news, a story of hope emerging from darkness, a mother's faith vindicated, technology both weapon and salvation. News crews camped outside their Manchester home. Interview requests poured in from every major network. Publishers offered 6-figure book deals. Hollywood producers called about movie rights. Karen rejected them all. Her son was not a commodity to be packaged and sold. He was a traumatized young man trying to piece together a shattered life. Lucas remained in Canada for 2 weeks of medical evaluation and debriefing. Doctors confirmed what Torres had suspected. While physically healthy, the psychological damage was profound. 9 years of isolation and manipulation had left Lucas with severe anxiety, trust issues, and symptoms consistent with complex PTSD. He startled at sudden movements, struggled with crowds, and experienced panic attacks in enclosed spaces that reminded him of the basement. But he was resilient. Broken, yes, but not destroyed. The human mind is remarkably adaptive, Dr. Mitchell explained during a family session. Lucas survived by compartmentalizing, by protecting a core part of himself that Vance couldn't reach. That's why he was able to activate that phone, to make the choice to save another potential victim. That inner strength is still there. Karen listened carefully, taking notes on how to support her son's recovery. David attended too, awkward and guilty, struggling to find the right words for a son who'd been gone through his entire second marriage and the birth of his 2 half-siblings. I should have been there, David said during one particularly difficult session. Should have kept looking, kept the case active, done something. Instead, I just moved on. Lucas looked at his father with an expression difficult to read. You didn't know I was alive. I don't blame you for that. But your mother never gave up. I know. Lucas's voice was quiet. That's why I need her more right now. I hope you can understand that, Dad. David nodded, tears in his eyes. Whatever you need, however long it takes. May 2016. Return to Manchester. The day Lucas came home, Karen had prepared carefully. She'd removed all the missing posters from his bedroom walls. updated his computer with modern technology, but kept his old belongings exactly where he'd left them, a bridge between past and present. She'd also installed blackout curtains at his request, understanding that after years in a basement he'd struggle with the New Hampshire sun. Lucas stood in his childhood bedroom, 23 years old and disoriented by memories frozen in time. Karen explained she had kept the room unchanged because altering it felt like giving up hope. Lucas insisted on keeping it as it was. He needed proof that the boy he'd been before the abduction still existed. In the weeks that followed, they built new routines. Lucas began intensive therapy with Dr. Raymond Chen, while Karen learned to recognize his triggers and balance support with space. Slowly, healing began. Jeremy Patterson, Lucas's childhood friend, visited one afternoon. Overcome with guilt, Jeremy apologized for not stopping Lucas the day he disappeared. Lucas reassured him, explaining that Jeremy had done exactly what mattered, getting help. As they talked, the contrast between their lives became clear. Jeremy's years of normalcy versus Lucas's stolen adolescence. When Jeremy asked about Lucas's future, Lucas admitted his advanced hacking skills, taught by Vance, felt tainted. Jeremy suggested reclaiming them for good. The idea took hold, turning trauma into purpose by helping stop others like his captor. In June 2016, Simon Vance stood trial in Montreal on charges including kidnapping, human trafficking, child exploitation, and cybercrime. Lucas testified via video, calmly detailing 9 years of manipulation and captivity. The defense argued diminished capacity, but the court rejected it. Vance was sentenced to life in prison with no parole eligibility for 25 years. Watching the sentencing beside his mother, Lucas felt something loosen inside him. Not closure, but the certainty that Vance could never hurt anyone again. For the first time, healing felt possible. By October, Lucas enrolled in community college to rebuild his education, filling gaps left by years of captivity. Though older than most classmates, he found comfort in their ordinary concerns. At the same time, he began consulting with the FBI's Cybercrimes Division, helping identify grooming patterns and prevent online exploitation. Knowing he had already helped save at least one teenager gave his survival meaning. 9 months after his rescue, Christmas arrived quietly but powerfully. Lucas met his half-sisters for the first time, bonding with them through play and shared laughter. Karen gave him a new laptop, not as a reminder of the past, but as a tool for the future. Lucas used it to join online safety forums, anonymously sharing his story to help other children recognize warning signs. He chose the username Phoenix 2016, a symbol of rebirth. Karen watched him work, knowing he would never be the boy she lost, but grateful he had come home alive and determined to fight the darkness that once consumed his youth. When Lucas thanked her for never giving up, she reminded him she would have waited forever. As snow fell over Manchester, the Foster family stood together again. Healing would take time and scars would remain, but for the first time in 9 years they had a future. And sometimes, that was enough.